So Jokic is going to win the MVP again, isn't he?
I mean, I guess, like with these numbers, what he's doing, how could you give it to anyone else?
Who's going to stop him?
Nobody. No one can.
Nope. Before we start talking about Jokic winning another MVP, if you haven't already, make sure to leave this video a like, give us a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. So after a slow start in their first 5 games of the year where they lost to the Thunder, lost to the Clippers, lost to the Wolves, and had 2 underwhelming overtime wins against Toronto and Brooklyn, I mean, a lot of people were concerned about the Nuggets. I mean, we certainly were, and I'm sure some of you watching this video like, it's okay. We can all be honest with ourselves. A lot of us were concerned about this team.
I mean, with the supporting cast, like you lose KCP, you'd already lost Bruce Brown. I mean, you even lose a guy like Reggie Jackson. That's a lot of pieces to your rotation. Russ, he had a rough start. You know, he's picking it up. Russ is always going to be inconsistent. I mean, he's got 3 games scoring 20 plus, and then every other game he hasn't scored 10. But at least you got Christian Brown. He's been incredible. He's filled in that role for KCP, and the dude is shooting the lights out this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's been like the one bright spot, but I mean, with Russ being inconsistent, Jamal Murray not really having a great year so far, and just the fact that the Western Conference this year, at least what it seems like, is going to be just a straight up like meat grinder. I mean, there was a post going around on Twitter, I'll see if I can find it, where it ranked like the remaining strength of schedules for all the NBA teams, and the 15 Western Conference teams had the top 15 toughest remaining schedules, and the 15 Eastern Conference teams had the 15 weakest. With how tough the West is going to be, I think a lot of people are like, you know, maybe could be a rough year for Denver, but I mean, lucky for them, that horse-loving Serbian just decided to start playing the best basketball of his entire career, which, considering his career so far, is saying a lot.
I mean, 29.7 points tonight, 13.7 rebounds, leading the league in that, 11.7 assists, leading the league in that, 56% shooting from the field, and the killer, 56 as well from the 3-point line. Like, that's always been the one thing where it's a little shaky with Jokic. He's still a great shooter for a big, but hasn't always been consistent. If he even keeps that to like around 40%, it's gonna come down. There's no way.
There's no way he can keep this up.
If he did, though. But
if he did, then
we're talking about the best player ever.
Yeah, like GOAT conversation if you could do that. He won't, but if he does, that's on the table.
Even if it's, like I said, 38, 39, this is like peak best ever offensive player. Like, it's tough to say anyone better if he keeps up just even around these stats.
Yeah, the Nuggets, they're rolling too. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They've got the Pelicans tonight in their first game of the NBA Cup, who they should beat considering all the injuries the Pelicans have. And like you said, like if he keeps playing remotely close to this level, if he was any other player, like he'd be a no-brainer to get the MVP award. You know, people are saying, you know, how could you not give this guy the MVP? But of course, this is Nikola Jokic. And when you put Nikola Jokic and the MVP award in the same sentence, it's a little complicated. So a brief history recap of Jokic and the MVP. Won it in 2021, got all but 10 first place votes. And a hilarious fun fact I found out when looking back on the voting results from this year, I was looking at who else got the other first place votes, and Embiid got 1, Steph got 5, Giannis got 1, Chris Paul got 2, and Derrick Rose got a first place vote. Yeah. Derrick Rose got a first place vote for MVP that year. And I was completely baffled by this. So I was like, okay, I gotta look at his stats. Maybe I'm forgetting something. Nope. He averaged like 15 points per game, came off the bench, was traded mid-season. So I was like, okay, I need to see the actual ballot. So I found the actual ballot. Turns out the NBA gave the fans an MVP vote this year, and they voted Derrick Rose as the MVP of the NBA. This is why we don't deserve nice things. This is why the fans should never get to vote on anything, because they don't take it seriously.
Yeah, first and last time fans are ever voting on shit.
It was the last time, because the ballot from the next year, it doesn't have the fan vote on it. So they were like, we're stomping this shit out right now.
I mean, that's a smart move, because if they brought that back this year, probably like Josh Giddey or like, you know, someone ridiculous would get that.
Who's the short little Asian dude for Memphis?
I forget his name, to be honest.
But everyone loves him, so you know people would vote him.
Yeah, exactly. So Jokic would end up with 971 points, and Embiid finishes second with 586. This is actually the second biggest margin in the past 10 years, and the only one bigger is 2016 Steph. So it kind of showed this race like like in hindsight, it felt a little bit closer. It really wasn't. I mean, Jokic did take a massive leap this season. This was really the first season he became an elite scorer, upped his scoring by almost 7 points a night, leads the Nuggets to 47 wins that shortened NBA season. Good enough for the 3rd seed. Of course, he torched the Blazers in the playoffs, even without Jamal Murray. But you still think Chris Paul should have won it? That just baffles me, to be honest.
I will die on this hill. I get it. Jokic had an amazing statistical season. He upped his averages across the board. I don't want to take anything away from Jokic because he was very clearly a deserving winner, and I don't have a problem with him winning the MVP award. It's just me personally, if I had a vote, I would have voted for Chris Paul. I think the fact that he led that Phoenix team to 51 wins, I know we're not supposed to include the playoff run, but he got them to the NBA Finals. The stats aren't gaudy by any means, but I kind of felt like this is the last chance where, you know, like a true floor general, point guard, distributor type player has a chance to win an MVP award. So I was like, you know what? I think Chris Paul, you know, Jokic is going to have more chances in the future. I thought Chris Paul should have won it that year, but I don't have any problem with Jokic winning it. He was very much a deserving winner. He then won it again in 22, and this one was a bit more contentious. Jokic, again, had an incredible statistical season. He basically averaged what he did the year prior, except he tacked on 3 extra rebounds per game. Led the Nuggets to a very respectable 48-34 record without Jamal Murray for the entire season and Michael Porter Jr. for basically the entire season. But a lot of people thought the award should have gone to Embiid, and that was reflective in the vote. Jokic got 65 of the 100 first place votes, Embiid got 26, Giannis got the other 9. A lot closer. I mean, Embiid led the Sixers to 51 wins. That was tied for 2nd in the East. It was 4th after tiebreakers, so got more wins than Jokic with similar stats in terms of points and rebounds, although Jokic, of course, far outpaced him in assists. I've been on the fence about this one for a while. I've started to warm to it a little bit more recently. I still kind of think that if you're going to give the MVP to a guy who's like a 6 seed, they should probably have like a statistically historic season, like when Russ averaged the MVP for the first time in like 50 plus years.
I was always team Jokic on this. I mean, I was always team Jokic this year. Of course, this was the year the whole advanced stat thing got brought up. I mean, the dude's supporting cast just wasn't there. Like, he does all this without Murray. He's still putting up incredible stats, his assists, just everything he did for that team. I thought he was the most valuable player. If they gave it to Embiid, I wouldn't have been pissed, but I still thought Jokic had it this year. In 2023, I actually didn't think Jokic deserved it, and I didn't think Embiid deserved it either. I thought it should have gone to Giannis, but this was a very close race between all 3 of them. Embiid, of course, wins it. Jokic puts up similar stats to last season, but of course, you have Michael Porter Jr. back, you have Murray back, and to win MVP for a 3rd straight season, you basically gotta put up godly numbers. On top of that, Embiid puts up 33 a night. He had the whole PR media team led by Kendrick Perkins trying to get him that MVP award.
That marketing campaign, yep.
Yeah, and he eventually did. I don't have a problem with this one because, like, it's so rare that a guy goes for a 3-peat. Like, the only players who have done it are Bill Russell, Wilt, and Larry Bird. Like, Kareem didn't do it, Magic didn't do it, Michael didn't do it, LeBron didn't do it. Like, it's so rare that you gotta do something incredible this season. And Embiid had kind of been, you know, the runner-up the past couple years. He was getting screwed over and like all NBA first team voting as well. You know, let's throw the guy a bone. He was balling out as well.
Yeah, I mean, this was the year that narrative actually really did hurt him. I remember Chris Broussard, especially on like FS1, talked about this all the time. He compared it to like Steve Nash in 2007, where obviously Nash won MVPs in 05 and 06, was going for a 3rd in 2007. If you look at his stats in 07 compared to 05 and 06, they're basically identical. Like, there's not that much difference from him. If you mixed them all up and said, point out the 2 MVP seasons and the one where he didn't win MVP, you probably wouldn't be able to do it. You know, as we all know, he lost out on the award to Dirk. It was still a very close vote, but the point that Broussard was making is that, you know, the Nash camp was pushing him to vote for Steve Nash, and he said, look, I voted for him the prior 2 seasons, but I can't vote for him for a 3rd straight year because, you know, he hasn't taken like a statistical leap to justify the historic significance of voting for him a 3rd straight time and putting him in that category with a Bill Russell, with a Wilt, with a Larry Bird. Like that, like as good as Nash was, he's not in the same class with those 3. And lest we forget, like, this was kind of the narrative around Jokic at the time where, you know, people were saying like, look, he's not in the Bill Russell, Wilt, Larry Bird camp yet. Like, he's just not. He hadn't gotten back to the Western Conference Finals since the bubble. He'd gotten bounced in the 1st round the prior season. Like, there were still a lot of questions about Jokic at this point. Like, is that a dumb way to vote for an award? Yeah, probably, but that's human nature. Like, the more we see of something, even if it's something that's great, the less impressed we're gonna be by it.
I mean, to bring up another FS1 guy, Nick Wright specifically, I remember member listed out everyone in NBA history had won back-to-back MVPs, and he said Steve Nash and Jokic would be the two outliers. Like, those are the two guys you could see in a room and be like, okay, these dudes don't belong here. Can't really say that anymore.
You can't say it anymore, but at the time.
Yes, at the time, that was the thing.
2024, though, Jokic reclaimed the MVP. Even still, coming off the title, you know, the whole narrative of, oh, can Jokic win at a championship? You know, can we keep giving MVPs to a guy who still hasn't gotten over the hump? You know, that narrative was dead and buried. But at least for the first half of the season, a lot of people were saying that Embiid was actually on his way to winning back-to-back before he got injured.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure Embiid was gonna win back-to-back. Specifically when he dropped that 70 bomb on the Spurs, I was like, it's Embiid's award. Like, he's going back-to-back. But then Jokic kind of just won it by default. Like, after that, the race really wasn't close.
Well, Embiid got injured.
Yeah, Embiid got injured is the main thing. It was kind of a boring race after that. Like, I'm kind of surprised Luke and Giannis didn't get some more love, but Giannis, like, you add Dame and your team gets worse. And then Luka, I think it was just kind of like too little too late. Like, the Mavericks weren't great for most of the season. They were tremendous down the stretch, but you only get the 5th seed. So it kind of just felt like you had to give it to Jokic. Like, no one else really had that strong of an argument.
I mean, Shea finished runner-up with 15 first-place votes, so I mean, you could have made the argument for him. 30 points a game led the Thunder to the 1st seed, but I think Jokic just statistically is too dominant. I mean, 26 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, 9 assists, great efficiency. Nuggets get better from the year prior. No complaints with this one. Again, I'm kind of with you. I'm a little surprised that Luka didn't get more love, but that might be because of what he did in the playoffs, not necessarily because of what he did in the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to this year, and you had to assume there was going to be voter fatigue. I mean, to win MVP 4 out of 5 years, that basically never happens. The only dudes who have done it are Bill Russell, 61 to 65, and then of course LeBron, 2009, 2013 with the Cavs and the Heat. And I'm kind of surprised, you know, Jokic doesn't get a bit more flack for blowing that game 7. I mean, I don't know what else he could have done. Like, I'm not really gonna blame him. I don't think it's his fault, but if this was like any other major superstar, if this was LeBron,
oh dear God,
if this was Durant, if it was Steph, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the MVPs, the title he just won, Jokic kind of just completely escaped that.
And there's like the voter fatigue, you know, 4 and 5 years, only happened twice, but I mean, he keeps this up. Like I said in the intro, who stops him? I mean, Embiid won't hit the 65 game minimum. The Bucks suck, so Giannis is out. AD's MVP campaign lasted like 2 weeks. Yeah. LeBron's too old. Mitchell, I think, could get some love if the Cavs get the 1st seed. You know, Tatum's got good stats, but I think the super team narrative hurts him. And then like everyone else, like they all got their strengths, but the problem with Jokic is that his strength is everything. Like he does everything at least serviceably well, and most stuff he does at an elite level.
I mean, I thought for sure Jokic wasn't going to get it this year because of the voter fatigue, but then he's putting up these crazy stat lines, like just unreal stat lines, 4th in scoring, you know, 1st in assists, 1st in rebounds, triple doubles just every night it seems like. I mean, maybe a guy like Shea could get some noise. If the Thunder get the 1st seed, say there's a big enough gap, they might say, you know, Shea's been leading this team, you know, he's balling out, he's efficient, he plays defense, but I really can't see many other players. I think Luka's out. Every year it's like, okay, this is the year Luka's gonna win it. He was coming off making the finals, but his efficiency has not been good. I don't know, maybe Shea, but at this point, like, we're already getting a gap between Jokic and everyone else, and the gap, especially if Jokic plays anywhere near like this the rest of the season, it's gonna be very big.
Maybe Steph could sneak in.
Yes, Steph could get some noise.
If the Warriors keep up, you know, the pace that they're on, but also like the narrative of like the Nuggets keep losing role players and Jokic still has him as like a contender, like that's gonna help him. The fact that the Nuggets are still as good as they are when they've lost a key role player each of the past 2 off seasons, like that does something for Jokic. And I don't want to throw out like, oh, he's gonna be the unanimous MVP or anything, because it only happened once and it was a historically great season by Steph. But he keeps this up, like you said, I think he's winning the MVP again, and I don't think it's gonna be particularly close. That's the video, guys. Do you think Jokic wins MVP again? I'd love to hear what you had to say in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving it a like, as it really does help us out. And while you're here, why not check out some of our other videos as well? And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.